What's up, everyone? Back for another beer review, and today is day 9 of the 5th annual 10 Days of Pumpkin here on the channel. And the beer I'm reviewing today comes from the Saucony Creek Brewing Company, and they're out of Kutztown, Pennsylvania. And this is their Maple Mistress, the 2022 release. So they're calling this one an Imperial Ale. And below it says ale brewed with butternut, squash, maple syrup, and spices. It comes in at 9.5% alcohol by volume, 8 IBUs at the time of review. This can is just under 3 months old. And I'm going to give a huge thanks and shout out to a very good friend of mine and a fellow beer tuber, Matt, over at Massive Beers for this can. So big thanks to him. In the description box, I'll post a link to Matt's channel. Although, if you follow my channel, you probably follow Matt's, but Matt was nice enough to hook me up with 2 cans of this when we met up for the 2022 BeerTuber Palooza in Albany, New York. I asked him specifically to grab this and from Weyerbacher, W.E. Yerbacher, their Imperial Pumpkin Ale, because we don't get distro here in the West New York area, and he was kind enough to do so, so I thank you, Matt, for both beers, but this one especially. Why? This is one of my favorite gourd beers. Now, I call the 10 Days of Pumpkin the 10 Days of Pumpkin, not 10 Days of Gourd beers. And this isn't a pumpkin beer. This is a butternut squash beer. But I had to throw it in the mix because I love this beer. I had it once in 2014, courtesy of Matt, when we hung out with a good friend of ours and another fellow beer tuber, Paul over at PA Brew News. We hung out. Matt brought, I think it was a 4-pack of it. He gave me a can, and on the way home, I bought a 4-pack of it to take home because I liked it that much. It's just such a different beer. I mean, butternut squash, maple syrup, and then like they call them pirate rum spices. I don't know exactly what's in pirate rum as far as the spices are concerned, but kind of in that pumpkin spice realm. This was delicious, so I hope this is just as good as I remember it being. We'll see if it is or not. Now, when I had it, it was in a bottle, and this is now in a can. But and they used to say specifically on it, it said, you know, pirate rum spices, not just spices. So I don't know. I'm just hoping this is delicious. I just love the nuances with the butternut squash as opposed to pumpkin. Like, you could taste it. A lot of times you can't taste the pumpkin in a pumpkin ale. Just there for like the body and the mouthfeel, right? Well, let's hope that I can taste the butternut squash in this. Anyway, that's a beautiful looking gourd beer. Has this like really like orangey kind of feel to it, but then it has like a little bit of like a brassish, like more like a brass copper color. It's very fine particulates floating around, decent carbonation. I don't know if this has an etching. It might, but definitely carbonation going on through. Excuse me, had about a finger of an off-white looking head that's now dissipated to a thin film. But yeah, that looks beautiful. Let's get a nose. Yeah. This smells fucking, listen to me. This smells fucking delicious. It's just a different beast of a beer. Like, I get a little bit of like, if you've ever had like butternut squash soup or something, and there's like a little bit of a remnant in there of like the butternut squash. Then you get the sweetness from the maple syrup and then the spices, and they just work in a perfect harmony. There's a little bit of cinnamon, allspice. This isn't heavy on like the nutmeg or the cloves, at least when I was. It's more cinnamon, allspice. Maybe a touch of like a coriander. I just want to sit here and huff this. It has a nice like caramelized sugar too, a little bit of brown sugar. There's caramel, maybe a touch of toffee as well. There's even a vanilla kind of essence to it. But this doesn't smell like a pumpkin pie because obviously it's butternut squash. It's reminiscent of like a pumpkin dessert, say, because of obviously the spices and then the caramelized sugars and then a little bit of that maple syrup, so you're getting a bump of the sweetness. And I'm saying there's a little bit of vanilla, so kind of gives me pumpkin dessert vibes, but not like a typical pumpkin ale. This smells fucking awesome. This smells just as good as I remember it. I hope it tastes just as good because this is one of my favorite gourd beers. Please be as good as I remember it. Anyway, cheers everybody. Thanks again, Matt. Yeah, it's so fucking good. Yeah, it's real good. And for 9.5%, there is not a substantial booziness, which is nice because I feel pumpkin ales, it's tough. And this again, how many times did I say it's not pumpkin ale? A gourd beer. It's tough to hide the ABV a lot of times, I feel. Some of the bigger ABV gourd beers that I've had, like sometimes it just punches you in the face, right? This not so much. But I think this is like medium, touch over medium, maybe a bit thin. Oh, just love the fucking aftertaste. Maybe a bit thin. Yeah, so it's like a touch over medium, maybe approaching low full, but not quite getting there, 9.5. So maybe a touch thin, but not anything substantial. The mouthfeel, it's very crisp. There's a lot of carbonation going on. Yeah, there's a lot of carbonation. After you sip it too, it kind of stays on the palate. It's not, this is moderately to maybe a bit over moderately carbonated. I wish that it was a little bit more smooth and creamy. But again, between the slightly thin body, a little bit more of a moderate carbonation, those are small issues with the beer, right? The taste, I love the fucking taste. First thing that hits me, there's a good like kick of maple syrup, and it intertwines with that caramelized sugar, like brown sugar, caramel, toffee, things of that, and maybe a little bit of molasses, just big sugary vibes at the front, right? But not like overly so. It's more of like a decadent, rich kind of sugar component. As it's just like, it's not just straight confectionery, right? But that hits me right at the front palate. As it passes through, there's, I swear to you, I get the butternut squash, because it's a different kind of feeling that you get from like pumpkin, right? And it just has a little bit of that like butternut squash kind of feeling to it. Like if you ever had butternut squash, it has that, you know, that certain character you get from it. That's what I'm getting. But it's not big. It's just slightly noticeable. And then midway, 2/3 of the way through the palate, vanilla hits me, and that pops in and out. But then the spices come. It's cinnamon. It's allspice. It leaves me with a semi to full-on dry cinnamon kind of dryness. This is mildly bitter, not a lot of bitterness, more dry than bitter. Maybe the alcohol is also playing a role with the dryness to some extent. Pour the rest in. I just love this beer. You know, a lot of times when you think about beers you've had, and again, it's been 8 years since I've had this one, you start reminiscing more so about the beer and what you thought about it back then, because I never tasted anything like this back in 2014. Now, after... excuse me, by the time I review tomorrow's beer, which is a brandy barrel aged Imperial Pumpkin Ale, excuse me, very, very carbonated, I will have reviewed almost 60 pumpkin beers on my channel over the past 5 years, or 4.5 years. That's a lot of pumpkin beers. And there are some that are definitely better than this. There's at least one this year that I've reviewed during 10 Days Pumpkin that's definitely better than this. There's one that I'm kind of feeling, do I put this above that one? I don't know. But I will say this. This is a fun, unique take on a pumpkin-esque beer, so a gourd beer. If you're in Pennsylvania and you can get your hands on Saucony Creek stuff, you owe it yourself to try this, especially if you enjoy pumpkin beers, because this is kind of outside the norm. Still keeps it within that pumpkin ale realm, but because of the butternut squash, the maple syrup, and the pirate rum spices, which are slightly different, it just makes for a fun fucking beer. 9.5%, a little bit of warming in the chest, nothing on the palate. I wouldn't guess over 8 for this one if I was doing it blind. And then I'm left like on the back of the palate now with like, it's weird. It's like the maple and vanilla and the spices have kind of intertwined. And like, I'm trying to think of like a dessert that I could replicate that, but like it's a maple cinnamon spice kind of finish. I really love this one. I will say this. Is this as good as I remember it? Yes. The number one beer this year, so far, 10 Days Pumpkin, was Prairie Artisan Ales, their Basic Rebecca Barrel-Aged Pumpkin Stout. Gave it a 5 out of 5. First 5 out of 5 is the fairest pumpkin beer. It goes on my channel. Second beer was Good Gourd, which I reviewed yesterday with Tyler over at Southtown Beer Reviews. Give it a 4.6. Does this touch Good Gourd? It's right there. So I'm going to give Maple Mistress the 2022 release from Saucony Creek. I am going to give this beer a high 4.5 out of 5. I'm going to give it a 4.55 out of 5. I like Good Gourd slightly more. I think I do. Very slightly. But like 4.55, 4.6, who the fuck cares? Great beer. This is up there with fun, gourdy beers. Just delicious. Now, price and availability. I don't know what Matt paid for it, but I did a little research to try to see what the price point was this one. So I went to Wegmans, the grocery store, their website, and I said, let me put in Saucony Creek and do a like pickup from a store that's close to Kutztown, PA. It said it was $9.99 for a 4-pack of this. If that is the case, just based on price point alone, this would probably tie or go above Cigar City if I took price point availability into consideration. Because $2.50 for that can, when Cigar City's, I think, cans in my neck of the woods were like $3.75, almost $4. You're talking a buck, at least $1 cheaper, if not like $1.50 cheaper. That's crazy. This is 9.5% to 8.8 for Cigar Cities, and this has maple syrup in it too. But I don't take price point into consideration into my rating, so I'm gonna leave it at 4.55. If that's the case, that's crazy. Maybe Matt paid 12 or 13 bucks for a 4-pack. Regardless, this is worth it all day. And availability, I think it's pretty much PA only. Maybe New Jersey. PA and New Jersey will say. I don't think outside of that, I don't have any idea. So if anybody out there can get Saucony Creek stuff and you're not in Pennsylvania or New Jersey, let me know. I have never seen it here in New York State, especially in the West New York area, more specifically Buffalo, New York. So yeah, day 9 in the books. Tomorrow it's Halloween, it's day 10, it's the final day, and we have a brandy barrel-aged Imperial Pumpkin Ale from Lakefront, and I cannot wait to get into it. So if you've had this one before, post in the comment section, let me know what you think about it. Huge thanks to Matt for this beer, and yeah, I'm going to drink the rest of this and enjoy every second of it. To the next one. Cheers.